to be, I mean, I don't know what their situation is. I wonder if they're doing cruises there. But it's the season, I'm sure, for cruising the coast of Croatia.
Yeah, I guess his work is going to be hardly affect. I have a couple who are singers. They also having a hard time because they cannot go to their shows anymore.
Mhm.
Not do their shows.
So they have more time for Vedanta.
Yeah, more time for Vedanta. That's what Mari was enjoying. Okay. Oh. Shiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanantam Satguru Pranatoshmaham Om Shanti 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 Om. Okay, we carry on with our Vivekachudamani. The previous verse we unfold the nature of ignorance. How come awareness or consciousness, apparently becomes unaware of itself and falls into this condition called samsara, becomes bound to the objects that appears within itself. Awareness, so to speak, becomes the object. So we have unfold those verses that try to explain how Maya works and how this ignorance comes about. And the inquirer wants to know, how does bondage happens? So the verse 41, it says, awareness is free of impurities, but when it's eclipsed by ignorance, the individual takes the body to be the self. It is then afflicted with the strong power of rajas and subject to binding desires, anger, hatred, etc. So, as we know, awareness is free and it's one without a second. There is nothing other than awareness. But once Ishvara comes into place, it somehow projects an infinity of names, colors, and forms. And then the individual jiva, which is consciousness appearing as the experiencing knower entity, the individual jiva, which is the self in its nature, becomes immediately entangled with the body-mind construct and feels limited. And then it begins projecting value on a numberless, numerous objects, and they start running, due to this other power. And first, tamas produce this bounding, this ignorance that forces the individual self to identify with the body. And then it feels attracted to the other objects, and then it develops those desires due to the rajas that comes hand in hand with tamas, and then it goes, and then it has to experience all those negative human emotions such as frustration, expectations, desires, and anger, hatred, and so on. So that's how ignorance unfolds. And then the verse 42, this bondage has come about due to these two powers alone, tamas and rajas, deluded, by which the person wanders around taking as the self. I think we begin today from this one, right? Yeah, okay. So this bondage has come about due to these two powers alone. These two powers, it refers to tamas and rajas. So we remember that tamas is that energy, that quality that somehow conceals the true nature of the self, the true nature of the I, and the true nature of reality. No, we can't see really what we are in reality for what it is, but just consciousness and consciousness alone. And that is due to this concealing power, this veiling power called tamas. And tamas is necessary. Otherwise, our body-mind construct would not stand. It requires the three energies. And the moment that we bring tamas into the equation, we suffer this problem. You know, we are the self, but somehow we can't see it. And then comes rajas and extroverts our minds, and then we get all excited with objects, including our body. And then we grab things and we try to get defined by this body and by the objects by which I somehow I define myself, you know. Deluded, by which the person wonders about taking the body as the self. So we get deluded. Delusion is a condition that happens when the mind is so stressed, is so worn out. Samsara is a condition in which we appear in duality, and then we believe that the objects have value. We believe that there are such things as I, the subject, jiva, and the objects were meant to complete myself. I totally missed that I'm already full, whole and complete. And then I run for objects. And this running to get objects is very, very tiring and difficult because there are certain laws in the field. One of them is the law of scarcity or competition or ignorance itself, that everybody starts advertising. Yes, you want to be happy, get this, get that. And everybody's rushing to get things. This is the famous rat race, as we say in the USA. So everybody's in the rat race, running. And then this one brings about so much expectation, frustration, irritation, you know, anger, and then more frustration, you know. And then in the end, the mind is so worn out that we come to a condition called delusion. The mind becomes deluded in such a manner that our faculty of discrimination, our ability to understand what's going on and to respond to the field in a proper, intelligent, wise way gets totally compromised. When we go into that state of delusion, you know, we begin developing terrible karmas, papas and more papa, because now my mind is destroyed, literally destroyed. You know, delusion goes for a mind that is destroyed, worn out by this constant affliction of trying to control the field, trying to find fulfillment, you know, through by the means of gaining objects, and again it fails. The wise ones, what we do, we are the wise ones. After we try hard, we understand that it's an impossible task, and then we turn to the scriptures, and then you say there must be another way here, you know, because I understood that nothing is going to solve this problem, right? So rather than push it to the end until my mind is completely destroyed, some of us just try something else. We develop maturity, and then we start looking and considering, and then when we see, Shwara brings James Swartz books into our hands, and then the scripture comes, and then teachers come, and then we say, wow, that's what was missing here, you know. I was trying to find this completion by the means of gaining and avoiding things and situations and circumstances and controlling and manipulating. And this is an impossible mission. And now I understand that the only way out of this condition is by understanding my true nature. Yeah? So this bondage has come about due to these rajas and tamas. Rajas and tamas are nothing but ignorance. Okay, They produce this ignorance. And the jiva deluded by which the jiva wanders around taking the body as the self. Wanders is a very nice word because, people who are lost, they are wandering. They don't have a direction in life. They don't have a proper goal. They don't understand where they go. These people that say, I think, well, whatever, whatever life takes me, he said, I just go with life, the winds are going to take me right in life. These are people that are just wandering. They are just being taken by one's ignorant vasanas, this vasana load is just taking and driving us around, and we are just wondering who, really like this sleepwalking people, how you say? Yeah. So we just go like that, wandering, taking the body to be the self and take the objects to be real and the only means by which I can enjoy myself and I can feel okay and satisfied and peaceful and so on. This is the condition. That's how bondage comes about, due to these two energies, rajas and tamas. The wanderer has no destination. His life is one of superficial attractions. So this is a very nice sentence there. Superficial attractions, instant gratification attractions, I want to have some fun. I want to have some quick satisfaction, quick result, and therefore I go for this and that. Anything that could somehow give me some release, relieve me from my pain, from my sense of incompletion and inadequacy and so on, and give me something. Let's eat, let's drink, let's do anything, But so there's a superficial attractions, very, very superficial. They don't last. They are fleeting moments, and they have a huge price tag, a huge hangover of upsetting the mind and making the mind decline even more deeply down, and more and more. And then you have to take some pills here, some tablets there, and then when you go, you have your mind in that condition called delusion. Delusion is when your ability to really, transacting the world in a way that your life is just elevating yourself, and then you are lost. You lost your mind, you lost everything. So these are the superficial attractions. His life or her life is one of superficial attractions, which draw him or her here and there in the hope of achieving some satisfaction. When the attraction fades or the satisfaction fails, the desire for something new, something more, something other impels him or her to move on and do the same thing again in the seemingly different circumstance, which will deliver the same result. So we get the picture on how frustrating life can be until we develop maturity. We just go from one object of desire to the other, and we never connect the dots. We never understand that nothing is going to complete us, that there is nothing out there that's going to solve my problem. And then we keep doing, we keep finding an excuse. No, it was not the right person, but the next one, So the guy had already several wives and lovers and so on, and he's at 75, 78, 82, and he's still believing that the problem is that he did not really find the right mate, the right partner, So it's difficult. People are deluded. They want something new, something more, something other, something better, something different. And this impels the person to move on and on again and again, running the same program, repeating the same pattern, samsara, desire, vasanas, desires, and then actions, and then vasanas, desire, and our ability to connect the dots and understand this self-reinforcing vicious cycle. it gets more and more difficult to understand it. If we don't understand it when we are somehow early in our life, when we are very late, these vasana, they are so crystallized, that if you try to tell people, they say, hey, come on. You're never going to happen to find another woman in your life, the person will say, oh, you crazy, I was not lucky. I did not find the right one, but I'm sure that it's somewhere there in the crowd. I just need to find it. So, which will deliver the same result. What is the result again and again? More frustration, more delusion, more irritation, more depression, more anger, more irritation, So that's the name of the game called samsara. The verse tells us that the two powers of Maya, the concealing and the projecting, perpetuate this wandering by causing the person to identify with the body. Not knowing we are pure consciousness, we think that we are flesh and bone. And we then seek lasting happiness through the transient pleasures the body is capable of experiencing. And the sad part is that the body-mind experience more pain than pleasure. Pleasure is something tough to get out there. There are so much competition. Everybody is running around, doing what they can, sometimes breaking, violate the rules, doing anything to get some pleasure, some satisfaction. So we go through life experience mostly pain and some moments of pleasure until we understand the game. And then we understand the game, and then we begin find our way out of samsara. And we then seek lasting happiness through the transient pleasures the body is capable of experience. And the body gets older, and even its ability to experience pleasure gets compromised. The body gets worn out, gets older, and this ability to get those pleasure, because when the mind was fresh, the fresh mind would find much more excitement and happiness here and there. But a beaten up mind, a worn out mind, even when some circumstances are favorable. Have you seen people who have everything going for them, but yet they cannot squeeze any pleasure anymore? The mind is beaten up. The person is really, worn out. You see, nothing is going to satisfy that mind, even if it finds all kinds of favorable things, So it's after some time, the body mind is not even more capable of squeezing these transient pleasures, because the mind is just, it's done, it's depressed, it's angry, it's pissed off, and so on. It's sad. It's very sad to see samsara, to see some certain samsaras towards the end of their life. You can see the sadness. I have someone in my family that it makes me sad. See somebody very close, very very close to me. And I see his life. I see where his life has taken him. Very good person, excellent person, beautiful person with the best intentions, but somehow he just was running, tried to be successful, rich, and this and that, and in the process, he was just destroyed. And now there is only this sadness, this deep sadness, in spite of whatsoever material success he had. I have seen several people closely related in that condition. But that's not our case, so we don't need to worry, huh? Right?
Arlindo, I can see myself in all these examples. I can see that this is like a universal, or else, and unless, and I don't want to say until you're free, or because that's the time situation, but with moksha, that may not be true, but when the moksha is not there fully, you know, a little bit of that is true, probably of all of us. It's like describing the human condition.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, you identify with that because you have been there, you have been doing that, you have gone through that. I have been going, I went through all of that as well, you know. So we know what it is, you know. That's why we identify. But we are no longer like that. That's why we were brought to Vedanta, you know. So there is a quality, there is a certain level of qualification in all of us that brought us to Vedanta. So our mind is still it's a it's a mind fit for this self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is not that easy. It's simple, but it's not that easy. But we are all doing our work. We are getting there, you know. We just have to keep doing that. What are you going to say, Molin?
well, just that even though on many gross levels I've resolved those situations, you can still see on a subtle level that the tendencies toward that,
Yeah.
there's like a little, what do they call Leisha Vidya, or a tincture of it left
Yeah. Yeah.
there that you still have to root out. It gets a little
Yeah.
deeper and deeper, but
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah. I understand. Yeah. Ignorance is deep, you know, it's very hardwired, and it has to be uprooted, as you said, over and over again until it no longer, it's like weeds cannot come anymore from those seeds of ignorance, you know. That's why we have to keep doing this work until the last breath, you know. We keep just keeping this association so that we can live our lives as freely as possible, as freely as humanly possible. Understand? We have to be careful with this notion of moksha as perfect freedom, absolute freedom, you know. So, because after all, we are all humans, and there is always some humanity here and there, meaning to say there is always some remain of ignorance that may sprout here and there. But if you have this knowledge, you you just you get yourself very quickly together, and immediately you get yourself, I forgot the word in English. You know, you repose, you get your posture, you posture yourself again from that platform of knowledge, you know, and then immediate whatsoever disturbance can be neutralized, you know. So, but there is no such a thing as a mind completely free of remains of subconscious ignorance that may sprout here and there, because we are humans, and human beings we always have some rajas and tamas in there, in the unconscious mind. You understand? So, but we need to understand our intention, what we want to do, which direction I'm taking my life. You know, what is my goal? What is my biggest desire, and what I'm working for here? You know, am I working for this and this and this? No, I'm working for self-knowledge, for freedom, you know, and then that's the direction. So this is very, very important to know, understand? And then it's just a question of stay with it, stay with it, stay with it, stay with it. And the desire gets bigger and bigger and bigger until most of this ignorance, if not almost all, is canceled. You know? All this ignorance tendency, you know, of feeling in a certain way and say things in a certain way and act in a certain way, those things gradually they melt away, but it takes some work, you know.
thank you.
Yeah. And I'm not exception. I mean, I'm included, you know. I know my bits and pieces of ignorance as well. The only thing is that, you know, I can very, very quickly, I put myself together and all is good. That's the difference. The young is someone who knows, has this knowledge as hard and fast as it can be. And every time that, you know, even ignorance surfaces, somehow it recomposes itself, you know, and then it's manageable. A nice way Ranji likes to put it. So rajas and tamas, or ignorance, becomes manageable. rather than unmanageable. Understand? Okay, verse 43. Ignorance is the seed of the tree of samsara. Oh, this is very nice. This is the tree metaphor. We have this tree metaphor in the Bhagavad Gita. You guys did the Gita with Ramji. Most probably you went through, I don't remember if it's chapter 17 maybe, or 15, but it is this beautiful tree. And then Krishna describes this metaphor beautifully there. So here we're going to see it very briefly here because it was not really elaborated in the commentaries here of Dayananda. Ignorance is the seed of the tree of samsara. So samsara can be metaphorically present in different ways. It can be presented as a wheel. There are some nice analogies or metaphors that present samsara as an ocean. There are some others that present samsara as a wood. How you say wood? Forest. Okay. When you go into a forest, I mean, we don't have much of this experience, but people literally get lost and die in forests because you start going in circles and you don't know anymore to find a way because the forest is vast, you know. So you can get lost in the forest as well. And in this metaphor, ignorance, samsara, is present as a tree, a huge tree, the samsara, the tree of samsara. No? It says that it begins with a small little seed, and this seed is called ignorance. Ignorance, as I said before, as we have the term, is rajas and tamas, which is absolutely indispensable so that the jivas can come into place. The whole universe, according to the scriptures, they are project for the sake of the jiva. It's all for the jiva. The jiva is consciousness, reflect consciousness, which is fundamental consciousness, that needs the field of action so that it can go and play and produce papas and punyas, and in this process, it can learn and grow, you know, until consciousness can become aware of its own existence in spite of duality. So we have this ignorance, which is this small seed. This seed is going to sprout as the universe and as samsara, with Ishwara, Jiva, and Jagat. Jagat being the cosmos, or the universe. So ignorance being the seed of the tree of samsara. So we see this seed, we see this tree, it comes a sense of I, you know, this sense of I and mind, you know, this I and mind in the physical body is what is said to be the sprout. When you have a seed, when it starts sprouting, that sprout in analogy is the I thought that comes into the mind of the jivas. Ooh, I am, you know, and I know that I am. So that is the sprout of consciousness, okay? So it comes this I thought in the physical body. And then with this I thought, we get in contact with the world, the object, and then it comes a manifold desires. These desires are presented metaphorically as the foliage, all the foliage, yeah? The leaves and so on, everything, all the greens, those are desires. You see how many desires have a tree, huh? I mean, how many desires has a jiva? Huh? This small I thought, and then it can produce millions of desires. You know, we can have millions of. Have we ever count our desires in one lifetime? We don't, but maybe we are moving towards a future that a small app attached to your iPhone may be able to capture all your desires since you were born, and then the people can say, oh, human beings now are producing 2 trillion desires in a lifetime of 150 years. You know, the foliage are the desires the actions of this jiva, as the job, as the body full of desire, the actions, which is a byproduct of this desire, the desires compel the jivas to act, the actions are represented by the sap of the tree, which is it's a kind of essence of the tree, the blood of the tree, these actions of the sap. The body is the trunk of the tree. The branches of the tree are the pranas. They need a lot of energy, of course, to stick out like that. So we have the branch, the pranas represented by the branch, and then the organs of actions, which is we have the pranas. The pranas provide the energy for our organs of action. The organs of actions are the twigs. The organs of actions and the perceptions are the twigs, the small little branch that comes out of the big branch. We have the big branch, and then we have these little ones. So those are the organs of perception. You see, the tree is like that. I taught this Bhagavad Gita in Portuguese language, and we went through this description of the tree of samsara. So, it took me 2-3 classes because it was very much expanded in that context, because I followed the commentaries of Swami Paramarthananda teaching the Gita, and he really goes into the details. It's very, very nice. So we have these organs of actions and the organs of perception, which are these small little branch, the twigs. And the sense objects, the objects that comes out of this tree are the flowers. And then out of the flowers comes the fruits. The fruits, they are said to be the results of Jiva's actions, and they are sweet and sour. So its fruits are the various joys and sorrows, the fruits, the sweet and bitter fruits of the tree of samsara. So its fruits are various joys and sorrows, born of many actions which Jiva presents to the field. The jiva, what is the jiva? The jiva is represented by the birds. The birds, they always love trees. They like to sit on the branch of these trees, and then there they are going to be enjoying the results. The results are going to be bitter and sweet, bitter and sweet, bitter, 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 sweet, bitter, bitter, sweet. So its fruits are various joys and sorrows, born of many actions which the individual jiva, like a bird sitting on a branch, eats and enjoys.
Hey, Arlindo, it doesn't mention the roots in this analogy.
Yeah.
Could the roots be the unmanifest?
The roots,
vasanas, the unmanifested.
Yeah, in the Gita, the roots they are present as the primary root. There is a certain name for a primary root. Okay, the root that is the
tap root.
Yeah, and then there are secondary roots. Okay, so the primary roots it refers to the self. Okay. And the secondary roots are the vasanas. Okay, so in Bhagavad Gita, it's very beautifully described. If you go there, you will see either in the Dayananda homestead course, Gita, or the teachings of Paramarthananda. It goes into the details. Yeah, the root is the self. The primary root is the self. Is the cause, it's the base, it's the essence of the tree, Samsara is the world of becoming, which is the world of time. In this world, that which did not exist in the beginning and will not exist in the end appears to exist in the middle. So this is samsara, is that which did not exist before, will not exist in the end, but exists in between. So, and the question is, if it does not exist in the beginning and in the end, so how can it really exist in the middle? Because that which exists always as its own nature. My nature is existence, and then I exist always. But no, samsara is something that exists temporarily. No? In this world, that which did not exist in the beginning and will not exist in the end appears to exist in the middle. No? This is samsara. And objects do exist indeed, but they are not real because they are not lasting. They break down again and again, you know. They are not permanent. They become something, then they apparently become something else, which can only mean, in fact, that they never were really there, but only appear to be, like a mirage, which is a visual phenomenon produced by the conjunction of the eyes and the elements and misapprehended as a substance. Our sense provides the data correctly. Our minds interpret them mistakenly. So we have our sense organ that gets the impressions from the field, but our mind not necessarily interprets it to perfection. You know, we very easily, our mind, it may misapprehend or misinterpret things, and we miss out. You know? And the most basic traditional kind of example that we do is the one of the mirage. Mirage is something that appears so real to our sense organs, and the mind needs to correct that perception, you know, and understanding certain physical laws, and understand that that's just an appearance. And so is the world, so is samsara. Samsara appears, you know, before our eyes, and we take it to be serious, to real, and we become serious about that, and we want to control it. We think that we depend on the objects of the field, and then we are caught up into delusion and so on. So this is the power of Maya that makes something that does not really exist appear as if it really exists, you know. It's just a visual phenomenon. Samsara is usually presented as a will that bounds the person to objects over innumerous births. It is a will that goes round and round to illustrate its repetitive monotony. So that's the point. That is the main purpose of this samsara chakra analogy. It's something that is just again and again, again and again, again and again, another birth, another desire, another thought, another action of the same nature, and another of the same vasana. It's just like repetition, repetition, repetition. Most people, they just recycle their vasanas from the very beginning to the very end with very little modification to their vasana load. So the purpose of all this spiritual work will do is to begin converting or transforming those vasanas and developing vasanas that can, in due time, help us to find a way out of this self-reinforcing, repetitive cycle, you know, of repeating the same vasanas over and over again. We want to be free. When we talk about moksha, freedom is freedom from those compelling, ignorant vasanas. You know, I want to be free from this ignorance-based vasana load, you know, that repeats itself again and again. With a little difference. Now I want an old car. Now I want a new car. Now I want a different person. I mean, small difference here and there, but fundamentally the ignorance is the same. I want things. I want people. I want things, circumstance, situations, you know, to complete myself. The seed that contains in potential all the manifestations of samsara is ignorance of the self, as we say, as we know, or avarana, that power that conceals our true nature and causes us to identify with objects that appear in awareness, principally with the body. So there is this seed. The seed of ignorance is called avarana when we look from the macrocosmic standpoint or perspective. From the macrocosm, we see it as avarana, is a power in Maya that conceals the nature of reality as one without a second and projects duality. So we have avarana and vikshepa. And then when it comes to the jiva suffers of that same phenomenon on his own mind as the power of tamas that conceal one's mind, and the power of rajas that makes the mind to project, to find a solution, to determine, oh yes, I am my body. If I'm lost here, I don't know what I am. I don't know what's going on. I don't know the nature of reality here, I need to come up with an answer, and then I just project an answer. And the answer is, I am the body, and I need this and this and that. So this avarana, the power of Maya, produce tamas in the mind of the jiva that conceals the nature of the jiva, the I, the atma, the self, and causes us to identify with objects that appear in our awareness, in ourselves as awareness. The first object, as we know, is the body. This leads to the pursuit of bodily pleasures, as discussed in the previous verse. The embodied awareness, the jiva, is pictured as a bird that perches in the tree eating its fruits. So the embodied awareness, so we have to look into that. This is, again, a concession or a limitation in language. So the awareness never gets embodied, So the body, the jivas, among all other objects, they appear within awareness, as we know that, because we are aware of all bodies, including our own bodies. So we don't live in the body lives in us. If anything may live in the body, is our subtle body that somehow pervades the physical body so that it can livens it and vivifies and animate the physical body. But it appears as the awareness is embodied. So the embodied awareness, so to speak, called the jiva, is pictured as a bird that perches in the tree, eating its fruit. So we keep eating until one day we decide to go, to fly away, to do the free flight of just, I'm done with this tree, now I want to fly free. Jivas have their mouths set for the sweetness of lasting happiness. So nobody is satisfied with fleeting happiness. There is nobody who is really satisfied. Everybody is looking for a lasting happiness, perfect, lasting happiness. Okay, and we never find it. We never find it. So jivas have their mouth set for the sweetness of lasting happiness. That's the goal of every samsari, of every karmi. He wants to find a happiness that remains, lasting happiness. What we get instead is short-lived pleasure and pain, which leaves what? Leaves a bitter taste. So we go for the sweetness of lasting happiness, but all we get is fleeting, short-lived moments of pleasure among so many moments of pain, which leaves a bitter taste in the mouths of the jiva, of course, and you're like, oh my God, is it what life is about, The entire mechanism, samsara, described in this elaborate metaphor has as its result what? Frustration, disappointment, and disillusion. It's literally hard to swallow. I mean, this is a depressive conversation. That's why I try to lighten up a little bit, We should never put ourselves in that. This is our past, you know. So because when we look at this situation, and I'm having someone in my mind, which is, by the way, is my brother. My brother is still alive, you know. When I remember his face of sadness and frustration, disappointment, it's hard to swallow, you know. It's literally hard to swallow if somebody would tell anybody, hey, look at your situation. Here's the mirror, fine. Look at your life and see the result, you know. I mean, the first thing that anyone would die is what? Denial. No, what are you talking about, man? Let's open another beer and having a good time. Life is great and so on. You know? It's hard. It's easy to deny. When we become fed up, so to speak, we begin to look for a way to escape the tree. And to escape the tree and its diet of bitter fruit. Most of us, we want to leave samsara only when we have suffered enough. But it should not be too late, because as I said before, if we stay in the tree of samsara for too long and we suffer too long, and then in the process, our mind is compromised, and then we cannot go anywhere anymore. You understand? Because we cannot do this work of Viveka, discrimination, our spiritual work. It becomes almost impossible because of my mental condition. I'm worn out. My mind is totally tamasic or totally rajasic, depending on one's nature. You know? I know people, you know, around here that are all the time like that, and they cannot stop. And then I know people that are just flat and depressed. You understand? So the mind is kaput. It's gone. It was too much to take. You know? So when we become fed up, so to speak, but it's fed up. It's really, when you've suffered enough, you say, no, it's enough of suffering. There must be a way out. There must be a solution. I have gone through 3 divorces, and I have children, many jobs and careers and so on. And nothing has made me happy. So there must be a solution. And I need this solution before my mind is going to be unfit to do this work and to fly off this tree of samsara. So how to gain freedom? So now we talk. So how to gain freedom? To utilize the scriptures properly, one should be committed to one's own dharma. From this commitment, purification of the mind follows. Recognition of the self takes place in a pure mind and destroys ignorance and its effects. So to utilize the scriptures properly, one should be committed to one's own dharma. So one should observe dharma. Dharma is the base. Instead, we need to understand dharma in all its nuance. We want to understand my own dharma, the situational dharma, the universal dharma, you know, and live my life governed by these dharmic laws and rules, so that I don't run again and again into conflict, again and again into papa karma, you understand? Into mental disturbance. So if I want to develop a peaceful mind, every one of us needs to observe dharma and to follow dharma. This is the basic. So if we see people losing their minds everywhere in the world, it's because everybody has lost the common sense of what is dharma, what is good for the environment, for others. You know, we lost this common sense. From this commitment to observe and follow dharma, the purification of the mind follows. So it's almost impossible to refine the mind and prepare the mind if we again and again we live our life a violation of the rules of dharma. Again and again, I'm cutting corners and I'm deceiving and cheating and lying and robbing others and so on. I'm doing all these ugly things. So, and I want moksha, and I want self-knowledge. So how I'm going to do that? My mind is going to be all the time experience all kinds of conflicting emotions, guilt, remorse, fear of being caught, shame, my self-respect, my self-esteem goes down, and then I feel inadequate, and I feel, I'm going to go all because I'm breaking, violating dharma right and left, because I'm being moved by this compelling, binding vasanas. It's impossible to purify the mind without this understanding of karma dharma and following a life in harmony, aligned with dharma. It's impossible. If someone did not do that, it means to say that someone has done it in previous life, and then sometimes people come and then immediately they attract to samadhi yoga, and then they further purify their mind. But the majority of jivas, we need to go through life playing all our roles in life, our swadharmas, our roles in society. So we do our dharma, we play all our roles, society roles and so on, and we follow our nature, our jiva nature, our pure nature, and we do that. And then in the process, the mind purifies. And then we're going to be fit for Jnana Yoga. Recognition of the self takes place only in a pure mind, a mind purified from karma, dharma, and upasana yoga. Recognition of the self takes place in a pure mind, and this recognition of the self destroys ignorance and its effects. So this recognition of the knowledge gradually destroys ignorance, and gradually it neutralizes its effect. So I'm putting in gradually this so that we don't have any fantasies that somehow you self-recognition comes and then, oh, okay, now I am the greatest Mahatma and I'm free and I have moksha and this and that. No. So I often like to say that self-recognition can be seen as another stage, another chapter in one's spiritual life. It's almost as I begin a new chapter now, because now I know I have no doubt about what I am. I know what I am. And I want to appreciate and enjoy the fruits of this self-knowledge. Like Ramji likes to present it as self-knowledge, self-realization, self-actualization. Self-actualization goes for moksha, for freedom from this ignorance-based vasanas, this binding, compelling vasanas, rajasic and tamasic vasanas, that somehow compel us to do things which are not right, it's not fair, and not just. So freedom does not stop. Moksha does not. It begins with self-recognition. Self-recognition takes place in a pure mind and gradually destroys ignorance and gradually neutralizes its effects, I would say. We will not be able to do our self-inquiry effectively unless our minds are prepared first. So we have no doubt about that. So that's why we present the qualifications at the very, very beginning in Vedanta. We say, okay, so if it does not work for you, it's because the mind requires a little bit more qualification. And guess what? The Jnana Yoga of Vedanta is the greatest purifier of the mind. It's excellent to purify the mind because you are feeding the mind with knowledge, with understanding of how Maya operates, how ignorance operates, and the understanding of one's true nature, again and again, that understanding keeps neutralizing and somehow diminishing or weakening this huge, strong, powerful ignorance, So you just apply this medicine, this remedy of knowledge against the ignorance, and the ignorance starts just becoming less and less powerful, So Jnana Yoga is a great, self-inquiry is a great purifier of the mind. So if we go into self-inquiry, and if we don't have a mind that is extensively prepared, so we know that we need to do our karma, dharma, yoga, understand dharma, respect dharma, uphold dharma, observe dharma, living from that platform, and become a karma yogi, and apply Jnana Yoga again and again, and then we have this cocktail of sadhanas, that is really potent, and in due time, this self-recognition is going to come, and it's just unavoidable, inevitable. So, recognition of the self takes place in a pure mind and destroy ignorance. We will not be able to do our self-inquiry effectively unless our minds are prepared. A purifying mind is a mind freed from excessive and unnecessary rajas and tamas. So this unnecessary is very nice. Excessive is also important. So we don't need more than what we need of rajas and tamas to manage our life, So in order to manage our life, we need enough tamas to ground us, to allow us to sleep in the night, a deep sleep, to refresh the body, mind, and so on. But we need to be careful because we don't want more than what we really need, We don't want excess, unnecessary rajas and tamas. So a lot of us, I used to live that way. So I had a lot of rajas. And when you become too rajasic, somehow you go in autopilot, and when you see, you don't need to be running around, but when you see, you find yourself running around. Now it became an addiction. I don't know how to live without running around. And I see here, when I'm living here, people that retired people with a lot of money, but they cannot help but run around stressed. This is unnecessary rajas and tamas. So we need to really look into our life and say, so how much tamas I need, how much rajas I need, and try to regulate it so that I cultivate enough tamas and enough rajas so that I can transact successfully in the world. And then for the rest, I want to convert whatsoever is left into sattva and more sattva and more sattva, because my goal is self-inquiry and moksha. A purifying mind is a mind that got free from this excessive and unnecessary rajas and tamas. So as a result, what happens to such a mind? The mind becomes naturally contemplative, meditative. It reflects, it introspects, it does its work, It remains as an undercurrent of self-observation, self-inquiry, contemplation of my nature, and remembrance of while doing other things. The mind develops this power of contemplation. It is a contemplative mind equipped with the qualities as previously described in the text. The verse asserts that dharma must be understood and followed. The scriptures refer to are the words of Vedanta, of course. The verse refers to to utilize the scriptures properly, one should be committed to one thought. So the scriptures here, of course, it's not just the Vedic scriptures, but it is Vedanta scriptures. Karma, dharma, and moksha. And we have it all in the Bhagavad Gita. Karma, dharma, and moksha scripture. The scriptures referred in the verse are the words of Vedanta that reveal the nature of the self as pure awareness. Such words are the exclusive means of knowledge for knowing the self. Why should this be so? Because the only other means of knowledge at our disposal are sense perception and inference. And inference is based on sense perception. So such words, the words of Vedanta, is what we call a pramana. It's a means by which we can know something. So we have the eyes as a pramana by which, by the eyes, we can see colors and forms, the ears, and so on. Every one of our sense organs is a sort of a pramana because things can be known, right, and experienced. So we have all these different aspects, yeah, of our experience, of our construct that allows us to know things. But as we know, the self cannot be known in the same way we know things. So, and then how are we going to know the self if the self cannot be known as a thing? It cannot be smelled, it cannot be seen, it cannot be touched, heard, tasted. So how are we going to know this self? So we need a different means of knowledge. We need a different pramana. We need the scriptures of Vedanta. The scripture of Vedanta is the means by which the self can be known, Atma can be known. Why should this be so? Why we need an extra? I mean, we say that Vedanta is our third eye, or sixth sense. It's a different kind of means or sense, by which something can be known which is not an object of knowledge, but is the subject that knows all objects. So we need something, and this means of knowledge is very unique because it's a means of knowledge that cannot really reveal the self in a positive way. There is nothing positive we can say about the self, because we can only describe something by its qualities, its properties, and so on. Jesus is very nice because you can taste, you can hear, you can do Jesus, wonderful. Look, all these properties and so on. You describe something very nice. I say, okay, I'm sold. I want it. How much? No, but the self, we can never really present the self positively like that by describing the self, what the self is. So most of if we want to see the description of the self in a positive way, the most we can say that it is that which is existence itself, consciousness, knowledge, and of the nature of limitlessness, all pervasive, existence and consciousness. But this is the nature of the self. It does not say much. It just say, okay, what I am is limitless and is consciousness and it's what exists. But yet, I cannot see that objectively. I cannot see that. You understand? It's the nature of the self, but it's not something that can be really objectified and understood. So how we go about trying to present the self or reveal the self? We go on negative terms. We need to begin by saying, the self is not an object. So what is an object? Anything other than the knower of objects. And then we have to start rejecting every object as the not self. So we go by negation. We're going to negate everything, negate, until we understand that the only thing that cannot be negated is the knower of all the objects that were rejected and negated. That's the way we can present the self. So the scriptures refer, such words are the exclusive means of knowledge for knowing the self, Vedanta. You can only know the self through this revealed knowledge of the Upanishads. Why should this be so? Because the only other means of knowledge at our disposal are sense perception and inference. So we can know things through our perceptions and our inference. And inference, they depend on perception. Every inferential knowledge is based on perceptive knowledge. So we go somewhere when we are small, we are a child, and then we see fire, and then we see smoke, and we see light. And then later on, we are behind a small hill, and then we see smoke, and we see light. So because I had the direct perceptive experience of associating fire with smoke and light, now I see smoke and light, and I infer that there is fire. You understand? But I can only do inferential work, knowledge, if I have had direct perceptive knowledge. So perception, inference is based on sense perception. As the self is not an object, it cannot be known by sense perception. Of course, the self is the subject that knows all objects. By what means can the self be known? It cannot be known in the usual sense of the term. The words of Vedanta that describe the self are mostly negations, all of which rest on the notion of limitlessness. The words of Vedanta that describe the self are mostly negations, all of which rest on the notion of limitlessness. So we're going to describe the self by negating everything that is limited by time and space until we have limitlessness. I did not understand this sentence very well. Can you help me? The words of Vedanta that describe the self are mostly negations. Yes. All of these negations rest on the notion of limitlessness. So we're going to negate everything that is not the self because it's going to be described as something limited by time, space, and properties. And the self, to begin with, is the only factor, the only principle of the nature of limitlessness. I think that's what it means, right? Most negations, all of which rests on the notion of limitlessness.
The way I see it, Arlindo, is basically any words we can use to describe the self are based on limitlessness, as in freedom, all-encompassing, omnipotent, based on...
Yeah. But, okay. The Vedanta that describe the self are most negations, all of which rest in the notion. I mean, the words of Vedanta that describe the self are most negations. So these are the words of Vedanta, all of which rest in the notion of limitless. But the ones that rest in the notion of limitless, they are not the ones described by negation, but they are one described by the nature of the nature of the self in a positive way. That's why I got a little bit confused. You understand my point, Mark?
Not exactly. Say it again.
The words of Vedanta,
or reiterate it if you can.
The words of Vedanta that describe the self are mostly negations. So we not these,
Yeah.
all these words are negate. And then it says, all of which, it seems that it refers to all the negations. All of which rests on the notion of limitlessness. So this all of which does not refer to the negations that we apply for everything that appears within the scope of the self, but all of which it rests on the notion of limitlessness. It means to say that we negate everything that is limited by time, space, and properties. I think that's what it means. We negate everything that is...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
When you take away everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, when everything is removed, what's left is limitlessness.
Yeah, okay, we got it.
And then you have to put everything up against the notion of limitlessness, see the boundaries before you create them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All of it rests on the notion of limitless. Yeah, thank you. Now, all we can know through the sense are individual objects, that is, limited things. Yeah, now it explains now better. Everything we can know through the sense in the mind are objects, and all objects are defined by its limits. Understand? And the limit can only be known by a principle which is free of limitation. That's the only way, you know? Now, all we can know through the sense are individual objects, that is, limited things. Each one separate and distinct from one another. So they are distinct from one another due to the configuration, the color, the form, the properties, the functions, and so on, you know. So all of them are separate and distinct from one another. Thoughts and emotions, which are based on perceptions, can also be classed as objects, all of which have apparent boundaries, if not in space, then in time. So now we are saying here that thoughts and emotions, which are based on perception, because we perceive our thoughts, we perceive our emotions. Thoughts and emotions, they are objects, they are tangible enough that we can perceive them. It needs to be tangible to a certain degree. They are very subtle, they are subtle objects. Thoughts and emotions, which are based on perceptions, can also be classified as objects, all of which have apparent boundaries. These boundaries of a thought, if not in space, we cannot see really the shape of a thought spatially in the space, but we can recognize its temporality. We see that if we cannot define it in space, but we can perceive it by its temporality. It just lasts a little bit and then it's gone. And emotion lasts a little bit and then it goes. Very nice. So everything that appears is limited. Even thoughts and emotions, they are objects and they are limited. If we cannot see them so clearly, so that to see that they are limited in space, but they are limited by time. They are not limited by the shape because they are formless. They are not limited by by color and so on, you know. But they are limited by time, and they are somehow limited by the type of thought and emotion that goes with it, you know. Yeah, no, I have this beautiful emotion. It's emotion of love. Oh yes, I love it, and I can distinguish my object called loving emotion from the ones of hate emotion. So we can easily distinguish and say, no, I appreciate the loving emotion. So we know that we can see them and distinguish them by its property, its qualities, you know. So Vedanta tells us that the self is not an object in any sense, yet we are also told it's possible to know the self through words. Isn't it crazy? The self is not object, cannot be described in any way like we describe anything else in the universe. And yet we are told that it's possible to know the self. And it's only possible to know the self through words, words that we use to describe objects. Now I'm going to figure it out. You know, the same words that we use to describe objects, they are going to be used to describe the self, which is not an object that can be described in the sense we describe object. So in which way we can describe the self by words, through words? Just like the great saying, the great mantra, you are that Vamasi, which means that what we think is our limited self, the Jiva Atma, is actually limitless awareness, that Paramatma. So words such as these ones, pointing to our limitless nature, to our nature as Brahman and so on. So those words serve the purpose to state what we really are. Of course, these teachings, these final mantras or Mahavakyas of the Upanishads, they require the mind to be so fertile, so prepared, so refined, so that a moment comes when you hear that and then that sinks in, and then it's no longer a repetition, it's no longer a sadhana, it becomes a fact. You understand? But that's the way we use the words, positively. Before we use them positively, we're going to use them negatively by discriminating the self from everything that is limited and say, you are not this, you are not this, you are not that. Look at here and look at your experience. You are not the three bodies, you are not the five sheets, you are not the pranas, you are not the three states, you are not this. So we're going to follow the logic of Vedanta, apply it against our own experience again and again. Negatively, we're going to separate, isolate this self, this Atma, this subject conscious principle, witnessing principle, from everything that appears and disappears within myself. And then once that is extensively done, and then the mind develops purity, this confusion between myself and my mind and all the objects that occur within my mind, it gets resolved. And then these Mahavakyas, these declarations of the Upanishads, they just go like, and then when you see it, you just realize it, it's that simple, but the mind needs to be really ready, prepared. So it's possible, yet we are told that it is possible to know the self through words such as you are that, which means that what we think is our limited self, the Jiva Atma, is actually seen as limitless consciousness, not this Jiva that is just a reflection of consciousness. And if it was a reflection of consciousness, understand its fundamental nature, no, but it's a reflection of consciousness that grabs the body and says, I the body. So that's why we suffer. This conscious reflection of consciousness, which is equal to consciousness. That's why we can establish that Jivatma is equal Paramatma. It's all consciousness, okay? But it grabs the body and says, I the body. So this I the body has to listen to this declaration of the Upanishads in a certain moment of total purity, intense sattva, mental sattva, And then in that moment say, you are the limitless consciousness. You are not the body you believe to be. You are the limitless consciousness, not the thoughts and notions and ideas of history that you believe to be. You are that. But merely repeating these mantras to ourselves will not help us to assimilate its meaning. It's not going to help. A mantra, it helps. All these mantras, they serve a purpose. They produce certain mental preparedness or purification. It purifies the mind a little bit. Even if you just repeat the names of Brahman and so on, it does something, but it does not do much more. You understand? Because you are never really going to understand the meaning behind of those words. You are going to benefit from the vibration, energetic vibration of those words, but you want to fully benefit when you understand the meaning of those words. Merely repeating the phrase to ourselves will do very little help to us to assimilate its meaning. We need the meaning. We need to assimilate fully this meaning. For that, we need what? We don't want to try to find our way to moksha just with small bits and pieces of Jnana Yoga. There are a lot of people in the direct path, in the Neo-Advaita movement, present teachings which are just fragments of Vedanta. Now, if you really want to be established by this clear, firm, and well internalized knowledge, we need the entire teaching. For that, we need the entire teaching, the integral knowledge of Vedanta, and unfold with the help of a competent teacher as well, because alone we tend to have hard time, because we're going to misinterpret, misunderstand the statements of the scriptures. We also have to be qualified to receive the teaching. So, yeah, it's not enough. It's not enough that you have the good words and good words of the Upanishads to gain freedom. We are talking how to gain freedom. We need that, but we also need to be qualified. Good teacher, scriptural knowledge. If you get a good teacher without the scriptures, that will not do as well. If you find someone who has the scripture but is not a good teacher, it's going to be difficult as well, if it's not self-realized at least, So we need a good teacher. We need the scriptures, a teacher teaching the scriptures, and then we need a student who is qualified to a certain extent. So we also need to be qualified to receive the teaching. The previous verse offered us an elaborate metaphor of the tree of samsara. Vedanta is the means for escaping that tree, to fly off that tree. It sets the bird, the jiva, free by releasing it from the ignorance that makes it identify with the individual body and makes them bound to the tree of samsara, jumping from branch to branch, eating all kinds of bitter and sweet fruits of samsara tree. Vedanta is for the mind, not for the self. As we know, the self is free, is whole, is complete, is independent, is one without a second, so it does not need any teaching. This is Ishvara revealed this teaching to us. Pure Sattva revealed this. As soon as we came into this creation, the knowledge was there for anyone who wants to look into it. The rishis. Vedanta is for the mind, not for the self. The self needs no instruction, but the mind, being a reflection of the self, subject to a great deal of confusion because due to rajas and tamas, which is indispensable, due to the powers of Maya that conceal the self and then misidentify itself with the body and with other objects. So the mind is the one that needs to be re-educated until it's free from all this confusion. To be committed to the means of knowledge, Vedanta, is to be committed to our dharma. The verse talks about the dharma as well, according to the verse. Dharma is a complex concept, but fundamentally we need to observe our own swadharma, our nature, our roles, our roles in life, So if we want to act according to my swadharma, I need to respect the roles I'm playing. So when I'm playing the father, I need to follow the role of a father so that I can follow my swadharma. So traditionally speaking, the swadharma is mostly described as the roles we play in society. We need to follow certain roles, in a way that we don't run into trouble, into conflict, and we don't cause any damage to the field as well. Dharma is a complex context. It essentially means that which is universal right. This is the universal Dharma, that which is good for all. But in this verse, it also means doing what's natural for us as individuals, as we are confronted with various circumstances. So circumstantial roles that we play in life. A mother that acts like a daughter in the presence of her daughter is not following her mother Dharma. An individual with artistic temperament that works as a butcher is not acting in harmony with his Dharma as well. Dharma and social virtues may coincide. Social virtues, Dharma and social virtues. Social virtues goes to the social roles we play in life. When we go to the office, we have to behave in a certain way with our boss, and we relate in a different way with our employees. So with our employees, we need to relate with some way so that we make sure that they are motivated and that they are going to do a good work and so on. But with our boss, we have to address our boss in a totally different manner, you know. Dharma, Swadharma, Dharma and social virtues may coincide, but they are not synonymous, especially in the case of individual Dharma, which may even cause us to refrain from what are generally considered good works. They are not synonymous, especially in the case of individual Dharma, which may even cause us to refrain from what are generally considered good works. Yeah. The individual Dharma, is circumstantial Dharma, individual Dharma, many times may appear as if we are not really doing what is really good work, you understand? But a lot of the time we need to respect our Swadharma and we need to stand for it, you know, and do what is considered to be respectful to myself and to Ishvara as overall, even if other people say, oh, this is not good work. No. So we need to do what is good for me as well. So to do the good for the overall field, it has to begin with not hurting myself, not hurting others. Does not imply that I can hurt myself and get away with it and think, no, it's okay, I'm just hurting myself. No, you know, we need to help everybody, possibly do the best we do, add value to the field and so on, but we should never really do that at the expense of just beating ourselves up or hurting ourselves deeply or going against our nature or acting in a way that is not proper for those roles that I'm playing on different circumstances on my day-to-day relationships. You know? Ultimately, what is right is what will deliver us from ignorance of the self. Ultimately, what is right is what delivers us from the ignorance. Remember again, Ramana Maharaj. So for him, what was right was to walk away from his family when he was 17. And he walked away. And in the eyes of everybody else, he said, oh man, this is bad. This is bad work. Man, you're walking away, leaving a little note and so on. But ultimately, what is right is that which will deliver us moksha, self-knowledge, deliver us from ignorance, you know. The paths that lead to this deliverance are varied. They may also be long and tortuous and appear rather strange and unsuitable to the final goal. Where a lot of the times we go in zigzags, you know, and say, oh my God, what's happening to me? Now it seems that I'm going south. Now I'm going up again. So it may be, I mean, a lot of the time on my own process, I thought, okay, now I'm lost and I'm lost for good. All the steps forward that I did in the past few years, now I did many more steps backward. You know, I said, now I'm screwed. Now I got myself in such a mess. I'm really in trouble now, you know, and my mind is lost and I'm lost in samsara and I'm completely gone and there is no way I'm going to come out. There's no way I'm going to find peace, you know. And then when you least expect, you see all that stress, all those frictions that we live in life, they somehow serve certain purpose of bringing about more maturity. You know, you never know. Sometimes it goes in strange ways and is suitable to the final goal, but we get there. You know, life is like that. Dharma stays a vast drama with an immensely complicated cosmic plot. But if we are committed to the knowledge of the self as revealed by the scriptures of Vedanta, we can rest assured that we are following our Dharma, our Swadharma as a seeker of moksha. For knowledge of the self is everyone's ultimate Dharma. Beautiful. This is what we were talking in the beginning, Lynn. So if we really are committed, we know the direction, what is my goal, where I'm reaching for, you know, we know that it all depends on Ishvara and the circumstance and the obstacle. And I know that even if I fall many times, I just need to stand up and keep doing my spiritual work. If I'm committed to self-knowledge, as revealed by the scriptures, we can rest assured that we are following our Dharma. Which Dharma? Our Dharma as spiritual seekers, as seekers of moksha. And to seek moksha is the ultimate Swadharma of all beings. But we need to come to that level of maturity, you know, is the ultimate, the most fundamental Swadharma of everybody is freedom. And freedom by the means of knowledge, not freedom by the means of fleeting moments of freedom by you know, by getting what we want or we believe we need. Okay, we are a little bit past our time. I want to conclude this verse. I can conclude. Can I have another 2-3 minutes? And then the last paragraph here says, this ultimate Dharma, or this, let me see, it is the Rome to which all roads lead, so to speak. Yeah, the Dharma. It is the Rome to which all roads lead, or no, it is following Dharma for self-knowledge, everyone's ultimate Dharma. Rest assured that we are following our Dharma. Yeah, this to follow our Swadharma, the Dharma for freedom, for moksha, is the Rome to which all roads lead, so to speak. Following our Dharma, according to the verse, purifies the mind. Yes, purification ultimately means ceasing to identify the self with the objects that appear in the self, beginning with the body, then proceeding to thoughts and emotions, which are subtle objects, and the many desires that keep up nesting in the tree of samsara, and ending up eating the bitter and sweet fruits of ignorance. So here the fruits, and not the fruits of actions, but the fruits of my ignorant actions. Going around in this tree, trying to do actions so that I can produce these flowers and fruits, so that I can eat these fruits as if these fruits will somehow resolve my problem. So eating the fruits, the bitter and sweet fruits of ignorance. So you see, even the sweet fruits are fruits of ignorance, because as we know, punya and papa do not brings about moksha. It just brings like punya and papa, bitter and sweet flavors of life. This is only possible when an individual does not try to be something he or she is not. Swadharma means accept one's conditioning, one's most fundamental programming as the roles it imposes. Failure to live in harmony with one's relative nature creates conflict and prevents discrimination, that's for sure. And also failing to accept our Dharma, you know, and just accepting what it is, and sometimes it even may go against my relative nature or my relative program or conditioning, you know, even if it goes against it, but if I really follow the situational Dharma, there are some beautiful stories about Rama, you know, he's the Dharma king. So he was able to accept whatsoever life would bring to him, always following the dharma of the circumstance dharma, even if it was totally against his desires and his merit. He had merit to become the king, but yet, due to certain circumstances, so his brother became the king. The brother, which was a half brother, became the king, and everybody was expecting that he was going to get the crown and so on. And he accepts that because it's my dharma to accept the decision of my father. My father, the king, who is dying, a dying king, has decided his way. And who am I to go against my? So it's known as the. He's considered one of our avatars. The avatar that was he followed dharma like nobody else. You know, he just accept whatsoever Ishvara would present him. When the mind is discriminating, we no longer identify ourselves with limited objects. So we keep doing this work, including our jiva atma, our mind, our body mind. We then see what the words of Vedanta proclaim, that we are limitless and the nature of joy. Joy is synonymous of limitlessness. There's nothing missing. I'm okay. This is what it is. I pervade everything. I don't need anything. Nothing can be taken. Nothing can be added. So therefore, I experience this joy, this sense of contentment and peace and confidence that nothing can really affect me in my fundamental nature. It may affect my mind a little bit here and there, but not me. You know, this is the freedom, and this is the joy. This is the bliss that a lot of the time people believe that is a constant ecstasy or experience. No, it's a certainty that gives this, Ramji likes to call it a confidence. Confidence in respect to what I am and the fact that nothing can really get me or affect me. This is the bliss. This is the joy. I am the nature of joy. This knowledge is not speculative, but existential. It's real. We live it, not as an experience in time, but as our abiding identity. We live it, not as an experience. We live it, as consciousness, as limitlessness. This is my identity. Or if you want to say, it's an experience of identity. I abide as the self. Understand? I don't experience the self. I abide as the self. That's what it means. Okay? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends. And I see you again next Thursday, Ishvara willing.
Thank you, Arlene.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Good
Bye.
night.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.